Hello, friends. I hope you're out wandering through nature, exploring the natural world around you. Do you enjoy writing about your wanderings? Nature journaling is an awesome, fun way to remember all the adventures you have taken and how you felt during those journeys. If you're looking for some beautiful journals to keep track of all your wanderings, I have several available on Amazon, including some guided journals for children. Start your journey in journaling by clicking on the link in the show notes. Keep exploring the nature around you and keep journaling all your wanderings. Hey friends, it's Paul here. Welcome to a very special episode of the Nature Wanderer podcast. Yeah, today I'm just wandering through the woods. I was going to tell you where I was, but it doesn't matter. I'm just wandering through the woods, just enjoying nature, enjoying being outside. So you may be wondering, why is this such a special episode, Paul? I can't believe I got this far myself, but we are at episode number 100. Yeah, we're almost at 2 years. 100 episodes, and that doesn't include one small tiny episode, so not technically we're at 101 episodes, but yeah, technically we are at 100 episodes. This is like I said, I didn't know if we'd get this far. I did a podcast many years ago for the organization that I founded, Wild Spirits Education, and that, I don't even know how many episodes I did, but it certainly wasn't 100. It was maybe like 20, 25, and it never really went very far. It didn't take off, and I stopped enjoying it. And anyhow, I decided for episode 100, I just want to sit back and talk to you about where it all began. You know, like I said, can't believe we made it this far. Well, I can. Yeah, I knew it would get far because it was something I enjoyed doing. I knew that people would enjoy it as much as I did. At least I hope they would. And I imagine some of you have been here since the beginning, I hope. I keep seeing the numbers go up, which is great, but it's not why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it for the numbers. I'm doing it because I love teaching. I love to teach about nature. And if I can be out here in the woods teaching about nature while I'm enjoying the woods, hey, what's better than that, in my opinion? So where did it all begin? I kind of hint around now and then a little bit about my past, a little bit about what I've done, and not a real open public person. I don't know if it's just because as a kid I was always very shy, but also I spent most of my adult career in front of people teaching, you know, not in a public setting, so to say, but working for environmental organizations, working for my own organization, teaching about nature in front of people. So when I get a chance, I just want to be alone. Yeah, alone with nature, in nature, you know. So I've always been that kind of person. Doesn't mean I don't like people. I don't like some of the things people do to nature, but it doesn't mean I don't like people. I do enjoy company. I love being around people. I love talking with people. But I also like those moments when I can be by myself, all alone. And I remember many years ago, don't worry, I'm not going all the way back to my childhood, but we're going in the, you know, way back machine, if you want to call it that. But many years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was early 20s. I used to love going for hikes. Used to love walking in the woods. But it wasn't like I made a point to do it. It wasn't like I was just exploring things. I was trying to identify trees. No, I wasn't doing that sort of stuff. I just liked being outside. I grew up in a little town, East Aurora, New York, and in that little town, we were fortunate enough where right in our backyard, you open up the gate and you're in a park in the middle of the town. So I remember Hamlin Park. Used to spend just about every evening, every day, all the time with my best friend 2 houses down. Him and I were always in the park, just having fun, you know, on the playground, sometimes just walking, sometimes just causing trouble. No, we don't cause, well, maybe at that age I did a little bit, but anyhow, we were always in that park. That was like our own personal wild space. And so I had that inbred sense for nature, I guess. I don't know. I just loved being outdoors. And I think another thing that helps is, as a kid, my parents always took us camping. Yeah, we would always be camping. You know, they didn't want to go to hotels. I started to find out as I got older that, yeah, my father was trying to save money too. I mean, they were always trying to save money, so camping is cheaper than going to a hotel. But that was the time. Most families were like that. So we were always camping. I was always outdoors, and you know, we went to some pretty cool places where we camped. And I'm not talking about camping nowadays. I see, well, I've actually gone camping with my kids. They have these big campers. It's like you're taking your whole house with you, you know, and you pull onto, you know, into a campsite, and your neighbor has a big house camper next to you, you know, like within 20 feet, and another one right next to that, another one. It's like you're in a tiny little village of campers. No, as a kid, tent camping. Yeah, we went tent camping. When I got married, my wife and I, we took our kids tent camping. You know, we didn't have a camper. No, we went tent camping all the time. So that was another thing. My parents always had me outdoors, and we were always enjoying nature, being outside. And when I got home from school, got my homework done, went outside, went to the park and back. I always had that love of nature. I just needed that connection. But I was a kid. I didn't really get it. I didn't really connect with nature. It was, as I was saying, but I got sidetracked, sorry. It was in my 20s, I believe it was, early 20s, where I went to the Beaver Meadow Audubon Center, which was not too far from where I lived. And I went there just to, you know, check it out and, you know, do a little walking through the woods. And I went into the visitor center and saw all the interesting displays and thought, hey, this is kind of cool. And that's when I started to really appreciate nature more, because I picked up a couple of magazines. They would have old editions of the Audubon magazine, and they'd just have them sitting out for anyone to take, just grab, and, you know, free of charge. You know, you can make a donation if you wanted to. I wasn't making a lot of money at my job, so I didn't have a lot of money, but I did put a little donation in. And I would take these magazines home, figuring I can learn about nature. And sure enough, I did learn about nature, but there was another thing in those magazines that really caught me. And what it was is environmentalism, conservation, learning what the government, what companies, what people are doing to our planet, you know. And I just kept thinking, it's like, you got to be kidding me. Are these articles real? You know, are they truthful? Is this really happening, where people are destroying our planet and not caring about it? And it just hit a spark in me, where I just kind of felt like I got to do something, you know. And that's when I started writing to my congressmen, writing to my senators, writing to whoever in government, say, hey, this has got to change. You know, what can you and what are you doing about this? So I became quite an environmental activist. Now, after getting a few, and not many people can say this, but after getting a few nasty replies from my representative in Congress, and looking back at it, you know, it's like, yeah, I deserved those nasty replies. Because I was being pretty nasty to him. Because he was like, oh, did you hear that? Pileated. If you go to the League of Conservation Voters, they actually keep track of how senators and representatives do with their voting, and they score them. Well, my congressman was at the very bottom of the list. Yeah, very bottom. And look up Emil Houghton. He's no longer in Congress, thank God. But he's been replaced by, you know, I think we're up to like 3 that have replaced him. And they were just as bad. Yeah, we just cannot get someone good in my district, which I'm not in that district anymore, so it doesn't really matter. But anyhow, I was pretty nasty to this guy, and I would let him know, you know, why don't you start representing us instead of your own special interests, and, you know, who's paying you this week to pollute the environment, or who's paying you for your... I was really pretty nasty, which is not how you get anywhere. No, you gotta kill them with kindness. I've learned that through the years, but being nasty and just, you know, blaming them for everything and yelling at them, and yeah, I deserved for him to get nasty back at me. Totally deserved it. But it woke me up too, him getting nasty at me. It made me realize that this isn't doing any good. He hasn't changed his vote. He's not gonna change his vote. There's too much money going in his pocket. So it's like, what else can I do to make a difference, to get people to understand what's going on? And that's when I decided, hey, I need to start educating people. If I can educate people, get them out in nature, I can start getting them to realize that, hey, this is worth protecting. Here I am standing in the middle of the woods, looking around me, listening to the pileated. I'm hearing in the distance, sounds like a chipmunk, but I'm also hearing some hikers on another trail, but I'm hearing, you know, all these different sounds of nature. The sunlight's coming through the trees, hitting me, you know, every once in a while on my face, and, you know, it's like, this is just beautiful here. But I've also been to places where all that beauty has disappeared, and it's because of human contact. So I knew if I could get more people to appreciate and love nature, they too would understand we need to take care of this before we lose it. So that's when I started deciding I need to start teaching about nature. I did go to school. I was going to become an environmental conservation officer for the New York State DEC. So I went to get my, there's that pileated, went to get my associate's degree, because that's all you needed at that time. And by the time I got my associate's degree, it's like the jobs, you know, were pretty much filled up for that position. And also I found out I was getting too old for it. They wanted people in their 20s, not in their 30s. So at that point, I decided I'm just going to keep going. And I went on and I got my bachelor's degree in environmental sciences, and I decided, you know, well, I need to get out there and start using my knowledge, using my love of nature. And I started applying for jobs. And I did get hired at Buffalo Audubon, the place that started it all for me, Beaver Meadow Audubon Center, but I did get hired there, and I was a naturalist there for 8 years, teaching about nature. The only reason I left there is because I had a boss that I didn't get along with. My original boss was wonderful, he was great, but then he moved on, became a formal in-school educator, and anyhow, another guy came along who, him and I, our personalities just clashed. he was on a power struggle and he wouldn't let me do anything constructive with teaching nature. So I eventually did leave there. I started working for the New York State Parks at Letchworth State Park, became a naturalist interpreter during the summers, but there was really no place to advance there, and I was doing more interpretive history of the park than I was nature stuff, even though my boss was great and he's like, oh yeah, why don't you design and I was designing all these nature programs and bringing those into the park, but it just didn't really go anywhere. He still wanted all that history because he was a history guy. That's where his background was. So he did give me a lot of leeway, which was great, but not enough in my opinion. And it was also quite a drive to get to work every day. It was over half an hour. And every time I was in the car thinking, oh boy, I'm wasting all this gas, polluting the environment that I'm trying to protect. And so anyhow, I, went through some other, nature-related jobs, and I finally decided I'm just going to start my own nonprofit, which I actually did do before I even started working for Buffalo Audubon and New York State Parks, and I just kind of let it go in hiatus for a little while I was working there, and brought it back to life. So Wild Spirit Education was a nonprofit organization. I founded and I ran for, oh boy, I can't even remember how many years. It was quite a number of years, over 20, maybe 30 years. And that allowed me to get out there and teach more about nature and, do it the way I wanted to do it, getting people involved. I'm more of a hands-on guy. It's like, you're out in nature, you're not just, oh, this is a, no. You're out there touching the leaves. You're out there getting your feet wet in the water. You're out there actually exploring the nature around you. So I was doing it the way I wanted to do it. And people were learning and I loved it. But eventually I decided that, time for me to retire. I'm getting up there in years, time to move on. I've been doing this long enough. My volunteers, they are doing a great job. They can take it over and I'll be comfortable that's going to survive. And so I stepped down. And now it's like, well, wait a minute here. I just walked away from the thing I love doing, teaching about nature. I can't do that. I'm a teacher at heart. I don't know if I got it from my parents. My mother was a teacher. She was a fourth grade teacher for many, many years. My father was a minister, which is basically teaching. So I couldn't just walk away. And that's when I started substitute teaching. I started substitute teaching at local schools. Middle schools became my favorite. I just loved that age group. They're at that age where they absorb. They don't even realize it, but they're absorbing this stuff. And so, and I'm also the type where I could go into any classroom and teach the topic because I love to learn. My wife says I'm a master of all trades. And it's probably true because if something interests me, I learn how to do it and I start doing it. It's like, oh, that looks cool. Wonder how they do that. Okay, I'm going to learn how. And I end up learning how and I start doing it. So, yeah, I do have a lot of knowledge in different topics, not just nature, but nature has always been my love. Now, that's basically how all this started. And when I started walking away from a lot of these things like Wild Spirit, I still want to teach, and I wasn't teaching enough about nature with the substitute teaching. Every once in a while I get science classes, but it seems like science teachers don't take off much. I don't know if they're healthy or what, but I was doing a lot of other stuff. And I was getting long-term positions in health because they knew I knew a lot about health and staying healthy. But anyhow, that's when we decided, or I decided, to do the Nature Wanderer. And the Nature Wanderer just became a way for me to have a website and write about nature, start telling people about nature, teaching about nature. And at that point, I started discovering podcasts, and I started listening to different podcasts. And it's like, hey, why don't I take the Nature Wander and start doing a podcast? So that's how all this started. And I'd like to thank everybody. I couldn't have done 100 episodes, couldn't have made it here if it wasn't for all of you. If there was only 2 of you listening, I'd probably still be doing it because I'm really enjoying doing it. I have a love for doing it. If I had 10,000 followers, I'd still, would give it up if I didn't love doing it, because you gotta love what you do. I've always tried to talk to my kids about that, teach my kids that, it's like, yeah, do something that you love. Otherwise, you're going to be making lots of money and you're going to hate your job, and it's not worth it. The stress is not worth it. All the jobs I've had, trust me, teaching, especially environmental education, you don't make a lot of money. No, you don't make a lot of money. My wife, luckily, she loved being a nurse, and she made it up to management and made a lot of money. So I thank her from the bottom of my heart. I thank her for, keeping us afloat while I followed my passions. So it worked both ways too. I kept us afloat while she went back to school to get her RN degree. So we have a great partnership, which I couldn't have done without her. So I thank her for all this. But another thing is, I thank all of you. Like I said, I couldn't have made it to 100 episodes if it wasn't for you. Because knowing that you're listening, knowing that you're enjoying it, has really made a difference for me. It makes me want to get out and teach more. And hopefully you're spreading the word. Hopefully you're letting everyone else know that, hey, this episode, this podcast is, great. It's a great way to learn about nature. It's a great way to explore nature. And that's also why I mention it all the time. And I've only had a couple of listeners actually respond to this request of mine. And I hope more of you will. But if you have ideas, comments, let me know. Get a hold of me. You can DM me, you can email me, you can, get a hold of me any way you can and let me know, hey, I want to hear more about this, or hey, I like it when you just go in the woods and you take a hike and you talk about what you see, or you love when I just talk about my experiences in nature. Maybe you enjoy, when I pick a certain topic, like what have I done? Woodpeckers, and just talk about woodpeckers, or garlic mustard. I just did an episode on that. I'm actually seeing in the woods here, Jack in the Pulpit. All the red berries are out now. So, I could talk about that. Maybe that's what you want to hear. I love learning as I'm doing this as well. I've had some suggestions, like the episode I just did on the loon. There was a lot that I didn't know about the loon and its predatory insect, the black fly. I didn't know that, so it was kind of nice when that listener brought it up, and I did some research, and it's like, wow, I'm learning more. So hey, you're never too old to learn. No, never too old to learn. So it was kind of great to have that, where I could actually learn from an episode I was doing, but I also want to make sure you are learning. And I want you to, comment. Is there something you don't like about the podcast? Maybe you don't like when I go and ramble in the woods. I don't know if I'd stop that, but, I will take it into consideration. I get enough people telling me that, hey, can you stop rambling in the woods? I'll stop rambling in the woods. But I want this to be, it is for you. I want you to make it yours, though. I want you to make it yours by letting me know what you want to hear, what you want to listen to, what you want from the podcast. So, yeah, give me comments, good or bad. and also give me ideas for episodes. But above all, 100 episodes. Wow. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I cannot thank you enough for, supporting me through this. I keep trying to get the quality. I keep upgrading my equipment. If you can make a donation through Ko-Fi, it really does help. I know I'm the type where it's like, I want to get something for my money. Well, you can buy Nature Wanderer merchandise. You can also get the, which I think are great. I love journaling. Nature journals that I have put together. So there's a lot of different things that you can get for your money. And so I encourage you to support the podcast if you can, but just listening, And, honestly, one of the biggest ways that you can support the podcast is by sharing it. Getting your friends to listen. Yeah, getting more listeners out there so that I can teach about nature to more people. And maybe you don't want to steer them my way, whatever, but at least what you've learned, pass it along to them. That way I know more people are learning about nature. But so I'd like to thank you. I've rambled long enough. 100 episodes, just very exciting. Glad we made it this far together. If you haven't listened to the early ones, go back, listen to them. Not as good, I don't think. My opinion, like the first 10, skip. I didn't even enjoy those. I was still learning how to do a podcast, so not the best quality. The sound quality was not the greatest. So you can just skip those, but yeah. And if you've been listening since the start and you've heard every single episode, I'd like to know that. Drop me a DM, let me know. So I'd like to thank you for listening today. Don't forget, go to the show notes for all the information you need. And above all, keep exploring the nature around you. Have a great day, everybody.
Did you know that plastic is made with oil, a fossil fuel that pollutes the environment? And did you know that only about 15% of all plastic is recycled into new products? Wouldn't it be awesome if we could live our lives without plastic so that we could stop harming the planet? Well, there's a company that wants to help you do just that. Life Without Plastic sells products that will reduce or eliminate your dependence on plastic. They have a large selection from toothbrushes to food storage containers to drinking straws, all plastic-free. And it's reasonably priced. So what are you waiting for? Check out all these great plastic-free products and help save the planet. Just click on the link in the show notes to find out more and to start your journey to being plastic-free.